And welcome to the Monday, September 9th, Maplewood City Council meeting. Let us do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. I wanted to start off our council meeting tonight with some really exciting news that I don't know that necessarily our community would know about, or even our council members. I had spoken a while back about a program that was available in conjunction with the American Red Cross, working with our fire department, providing smoke detectors for homes that currently don't have them. And I had spoken to Chief Mondor about that and wanting to see what kind of partnership we could put together with the Red Cross, in particular picking out our manufactured home communities, because they seemed to be the most vulnerable when it comes to fires. And so Chief Mondor took that and ran with it, and he sent a follow-up email about something that happened on September 7th, and I'm going to read this because this was his email to the chief. Today, he says, Chief, today our staff visited 44 homes and installed 78 smoke detectors while providing life safety tips to all residents who would allow them to enter their homes. With this event, we were able to reach 17% of the community. This included outreach to non-English speaking residents through the help of Spanish speaking volunteers. We were also able to identify 2 residents who were deaf in the community. We installed bed shaker alarms in one of the residences and have a follow-up appointment with the other residents. 12 teams were deployed in the community. Each team consisted of a firefighter, a Red Cross volunteer, and an Xcel Energy volunteer. These teams door-knocked the entire neighborhood after fulfilling pre-scheduled appointments and left information on the program at each residence that we were unable to contact. We will conduct follow-up again in the coming weeks with a goal of reaching at least 25% of the Beaver Lake Estates community. Once we reach our goal, in our first community, we will expand to Rolling Hills, Town and Country, and the English Manufactured Home community. He is compiling more data and will be providing that to the city manager. And City Manager Coleman, would you please send that out once you get it so that the council can see that? But that is just one of those nice examples of partnerships and what that can mean for our community. So very nicely done, Chief Mondor and the fire department, and thanks for taking care of all of our residents. It's really very cool, and at no cost to them. So if there are any residents out there that would like to participate, certainly you can contact Chief Mondor, and he can arrange for free smoke alarms, which I think is really very cool, through the Red Cross. So with that, City Clerk Sint, would you please do our roll call?
Juniman?
Here.
Councilmember Neblett?
Present.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Knudsen?
Here.
Mayor Abrams?
Here. Okay, approval of our agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Neblett, seconded by Smith. Motion to approve the agenda. Any additions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
The agenda passes. Moving on to approval of the minutes. We have first the August 26, 2019 City Council Workshop minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Smith. Motion to approve the City Council Workshop minutes for August 26th. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those who abstain? I abstain. I was not present. Okay, moving on to the August 26, 2019 City Council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Neblett, seconded by Juniman. Motion to approve the August 26th City Council minutes. Any other discussion on that?
I would like to point out that the meeting adjourned in 26 minutes.
I couldn't resist.
That might be a record. Thank you for noting that. Thank you for noting that. Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will abstain from that. I'll have to tell you, council members, I was absent, but I certainly watched the council meetings, and it certainly is a great resource that we have that we can watch even though we're not here. So appointments and presentations, we have the administrative presentations, council calendar update.
Go ahead. Thank you, Mayor and Council. The calendar update is just meant to give the council an indication of the current planning for upcoming agenda items and work session schedules, and they are subject to change. Our next meeting on September 23rd, at our workshop, we will be having a discussion with Ramsey County on the ponds at Battle Creek with County Commissioner Reinhardt and also some of the staff from Ramsey County who are working on that project. And that will begin at 5:30, I believe. And then that evening, we're going to be adopting the rental licensing ordinance. And I have not put the calendar together beyond this week. We need to get through the budget process, and now we can start focusing on some other things. So I'll be meeting with department heads tomorrow to run through what the upcoming workshops will look like after the 23rd. In terms of upcoming community events, you have a calendar on page 2 of the staff report. There are a couple that I would just highlight. This Thursday, the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce is having their local government awards luncheon, and Maplewood has been fortunate enough to be nominated for 2 awards, one relating to our public safety department and their initiatives in community outreach, and also our planning community development department, and everyone really, for the North End study, our planning process. And so we can't wait to see how we do. Ironically, I got a call today from the St. Paul Chamber. It was one of those courtesy calls from board members saying, how are things going? And I said, well, we're really happy to be nominated for those 2 local government awards. We had a nice little chat. So it was nice that they checked in once in a while. So that was a good conversation. We did talk about our business retention program and some of the things that we're working on with the chamber. And they are really good partners. Then just for council's sake, we are going to have our employee picnic on the 18th from 11 to 1. And you're certainly welcome to join us. I know for some of you who aren't close at the lunch hour, it might be difficult to get here, but it is nice to check in and see the employees. Hopefully we'll have a nice day for that. And there's also several other things going on, especially with the Public Safety Department. But you can see that calendar. It's also attached on the Friday FYI. And unless there's some ideas or concerns you'd like staff to work on, that's my report, Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Juniman.
I just wanted to report back. I don't know if any of the rest of you have had any phone calls, but I've had 2 from residents in the south about the ponds. So obviously, one in particular was not happy with, well, why was this such a surprise? I'm like, contact your county commissioner. Anyway, so I think Brian's idea that we needed to do this publicly, since they don't know how, was a good one.
I think it's a very good point, because I know I have received telephone calls and emails concerning the ponds as well. And I think it's important to know that the ponds is owned by, there was a little bit of misunderstanding there, because people were asking, why are we closing the ponds? And we're not closing the ponds, it's not ours. It happens to be within our city, but it is a county golf course, and I have been directing people to contact Victoria Reinhardt. And so I'm very glad that she is coming to speak with us about that. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. As a resident of South Maplewood, I've been getting a lot of these calls and messages and whatnot. There is an organization put together that saw some lawn signs going up this week. So they seem to be very organized. They, so if people are wanting to get involved, that might be one good way. You can kind of Google that and look it up, of sort of a grassroots group that's getting together to advocate for the golf course. And looking forward to the conversation. I appreciate the staff putting that together so quickly.
Anything else? Okay, sounded council presentations. We didn't really have any tonight. we have a resolution of appreciation. Ms. Fidwell, do you have that? I don't see.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. So we have a Commissioner, Tom Sin, who has been on our commission, the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission, for 4 years and 10 months. So Tom recently moved out of the city of Maplewood to another city, and he did resign his position. He really wanted to continue to serve, but of course, not a city resident. So tonight, we are looking for a resolution of appreciation for Tom and his years of service on the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission.
Councilmember Juniman, do you want to read the resolution of appreciation? I don't see Mr. Sin here.
Certainly I will. Thank you. Whereas Tom Sin has been a member of the Maplewood Environmental and Natural Resources Commission for 4 years and 10 months, serving from September 22nd, 2014 to July 31st, 2019. Mr. Sin has served faithfully in those capacities. And whereas the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission and City Council have appreciated his experience, insights, and good judgment, and whereas Mr. Sin has freely given of his time and energy without compensation for the betterment of the city of Maplewood, and whereas Mr. Sin has shown dedication to his duties and has consistently contributed his leadership and efforts for the benefit of the city, now therefore it is hereby resolved for and on behalf of the city of Maplewood, Minnesota and its citizens that Tom Sin is hereby extended our gratitude and appreciation for his dedicated service. I move this resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Neblett. The motion to approve a resolution of appreciation for Tom Sin for his service on the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. I take it that staff will send that to Mr. Sin?
That's correct.
Okay.
We knew he was not going to be here.
Okay, thanks. Moving on to the consent agenda. These items are pretty routine in nature and non-controversial. Tonight, I am going to highlight number 2 so that we can have a bit of a discussion on it. And the reason that I am doing that is that I recognize when I was reading my council packet, this is an address that we saw in July and took some action on, and I just wanted to, I felt like we needed to have a little discussion on that. Is there anything else that anyone else wants to highlight on the consent agenda?
Well, it's such a long one.
I know. There's only 3 items on it. Let's highlight one of them. Ms. Sint, do you want to start with number 2?
Thank
This
you.
is the massage center license.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight, Rangwang Lee is here as the sole owner and manager of a new massage center called Fantastic Massage at 2225 White Bear Avenue North, Suite 1. She has applied for this after you had last heard about this location. She has met all of our qualifications. She is the therapist that will be there. She has gone to an accredited school, so she has met all of our qualifications for a therapist. And she passed the background check, and she has met with PD just to go over some items that she needs to make sure she is maintaining. And with that, there was no reason to deny her license that we saw, and she's being brought before you tonight for approval. She is here tonight, if you would like to speak with her.
Can I ask you to step up to the microphone, please? Sure. Welcome to our council. Do you want to state your name?
Okay. My name is Rang Lee. I'm the owner of the Fantastic Massage Center.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your massage center.
Actually, it's pretty new for me because I never be an owner before. I just graduated from the traditional acupuncture massage school, I think it's called that. So on July, I graduated from there, and then I heard the store closed. So I just curious went there and saw that they try to list for someone else. So I talk with the landlord and come here to double check if I can rent there to open or not. So yeah, I do every paperwork. Yeah, so today I come here to waiting, yeah, if it will prove or not.
Okay. Well, we want to welcome you to Maplewood, and the fact that, there was a problem that at a previous business, completely different from yours, at that same location, and that's why I wanted to have you come up and kind of highlight this on the consent agenda. Does anyone else have any questions? Councilmember Juniman?
Actually, it's not for her. I think it's for Andrea. When we handled the other one, there was a license for the therapist and a license for the business. This is just for the business?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So actually, this is for the center, because that's what the council needs to approve. The therapists are actually administratively approved.
She has
And
her
she is
license.
also going to be the therapist.
Thank you. Just verifying.
Anything else, council members? Councilmember Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. This question actually for the chief, I think. Just with the history of this location, in the event that perhaps former clients or those folks show up, have we offered Ms. Lee resources and what to do in those situations, and just to make sure that she and any staff she has there are safe and are well cared for by the city?
Mayor, members of the council, obviously we did have some concerns, and after the last incident with the previous owner, we now have an in-person interview with any owners that want to come before us, and we did have Ms. Lee meet with some of our investigation staff. We did talk about the issues that we'd had there and the propensity for people to come back to there, maybe not understanding that she intends to run a legitimate business. I can tell you in terms of human trafficking and prostitution, there's oftentimes websites and there's other things that are affiliated with that type of a business. And so we'll continue to make sure that those types of businesses are not operated in Maplewood to the best of our ability. There is that issue that, like Councilmember Smith said, that somebody might unsuspectingly come to her business, not understanding that it has changed. And so we've advised her if that happens that we would ask her to call the police right away. And of course, we're willing to support her in whatever ways are helpful to her as a business owner in the city.
Councilmember Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'd like to just say once again, from our perspective, please call us if there's any problems.
Sure, okay.
Because we want to be helpful and make sure that you are supported and safe in our city.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion?
I move consent, I consent, easy for me to say, consent agenda items 1 through 3.
Is there a second? Moved by Juniman, seconded by Knutson. Consent agenda items 1 through 3. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Welcome to Maplewood.
Thank you.
We have no public hearings tonight. We have no unfinished business. We're moving on to new business and the resolution adopting the 2020 preliminary property tax levy and setting the 2020 budget public hearing date and time. Ms. Paulseth?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Finally, you will be asked, you will be considering the adoption of the preliminary levy for taxes payable in 2020. Again, the amount of the levy is $23,217,300, which is 5% more than last year's levy. That resulted in an approximate 11.5% property tax increase on the median value home in Maplewood of an approximate amount of about $107, most of that being due to the increase in the value of the home rather than the amount of the levy. So by adopting the resolution, the City Council is establishing the maximum levy that it is willing to consider, and you will adopt the final levy on December 9th, at which time you will also be setting the Truth and Taxation hearing. We'll be setting that tonight for December 9th at 7 p.m. So with that, I would ask that the council consider adoption of the resolution setting the preliminary levy.
Thank you. I feel like we've been at this for months. I really do. Does- Well, council, do you have any questions for Finance Director Paul Seth? Councilmember Smith.
I just want to compliment Ms. Paulseth once again. These are such complicated issues, and thanks to the state of Minnesota, they're extra complicated. And you do such a lovely job of making things clear, easy to understand for those of us who are not finance experts. And I just really appreciate the approach you take to make it simple and presentable for us. So thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
You know, I want to make a comment too, in that I know all of the departments are responsible for their budgets and bringing all of that together. So I think our staff has done an excellent job of pulling together a budget that is going to benefit our residents. And Ms. Paulseth, you've got the job of bringing all of that together along with our city manager, and the two of you have done a fabulous job. These are not easy issues. When I read this weekend, we're still at the budget, and this has been going on. You know, when did we start this? It was springtime. You know, we've gone through an entire season. I drove here tonight, and the leaves are changing already on several of the trees. And, you know, this has been going on for months, so we're finally there, folks. Any other questions? I think we've really, we're very familiar with this budget and where we are and where we're going. Do I have a motion then?
I move approval of the resolution setting a preliminary tax levy for taxes payable in 2020 of $23,217,300 and setting the 2020 budget hearing for December 9th, 2019 at 7 p.m.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Smith, the motion to adopt the resolution setting the preliminary tax levy as stated in our packet. Is there any further discussion? I can't imagine that there would be, but maybe there is.
No, just a
Any-
reminder to the public that this is the maximum it can be, and if we didn't set it at this level now, we could not add on if something unforeseen or scary happens in between.
Okay.
But we know that staff has done a good job, but they usually do a good job also of looking one more time to see what we can do between now and December.
With that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you again, staff, for all of your hard work on that. And now we're going on to curbside residential recycling.
Bill and I need a nap.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council.
Ms. Finwall?
So I have a short presentation for you. I did make copies for your information. I thought it'd be best to have some details on the screen here so we could discuss these contracts. So as you recall, on June 17th, the city of Maplewood received 6 proposals from our request for proposals for trash and recycling. On July 22nd, the City Council authorized staff to negotiate with the top-ranked respondents, and Tennis Sanitation had the best overall scores in the recycling-only alternate category when evaluated against all 6 criteria, including the lowest price. So the City Council authorized us to begin those negotiations with Tennis Sanitation for a new recycling contract. So the details on the contract are a 5.5-year contract beginning January 2020 to June 2025. The cart size options would remain the same, 35, 65, or 95-gallon recycling carts. When we rolled out carts years ago, we rolled out just the 65-gallon carts, but since then, Tennis has been offering our residents to change those cart sizes either to a 35 or 95 or remain with that 65. There is a change also to large apartments. We will be allowing them to utilize recycling dumpsters that would be purchased by Tennis for use in those large apartment complexes. So that's a new change. The collection will remain weekly on one of the city's 5-day certain collection routes. The billing will continue as we currently do it, with Tennis Sanitation billing the city for the overall recycling, and then the city adding that recycling fee onto the residents' water bill. They will continue to collect recycling at city facilities at no charge as part of this contract. They'll continue to encourage, along with the city, small businesses and churches to opt into the city's recycling program. One change there is that they'll also offer dumpsters for small businesses and churches at a fee of $45 per month. And those recycling carts that they roll out for the small businesses and churches, it's 2 95-gallon carts at the same cost as our residential household fee. So it's a really good deal. The reports will continue to come to the city monthly and annually, and of course, those detail all the program specifics like number of households served and so forth. We'll continue to have the work plan where the Environmental Commission and City Council will review that, and we'll look for efficiencies in our program, and Tennis will help us implement those over each year. Public education will remain the same. We'll work with Tennis and our trash hauler to do a combined annual flyer. And then Tennis does roll out those education tags when they find materials that are not recyclable at residential households. The liquidated damages, we did modify that compared to the last contract. We have some new liquidated damages and then an incident escalation procedure to make it more clear what the process is, if there is a concern. One of those new liquidated damages is mixed public messaging, so that the two contractors are working closely with the city to ensure that we're giving adequate messaging for delayed service and so forth. So then getting into the rates on this contract, Tennis did supply us with an alternate proposal. As you know, Tennis Sanitation does have the carts currently rolled out in the city of Maplewood. The RFP outlined that the city would own the carts, so we were looking for pricing for city-owned carts. However, Tennis was the only one that had supplied us with this alternate because, of course, they currently have the carts out there. So on the rates here, there are no taxes or fees, so this is the fee that would be charged to the city. So you can see for each of the years, the contractor supplied carts starts at that $4 per household per month, up to $5.25 per household per month at the end of the contract. And then if the city were to purchase the carts, Tennis is actually proposing an increase in price. So that pricing would be $4.40 to $4.50, and again, that 10-cent difference comes from if the city purchases the carts from Tennis's preferred cart manufacturer. So the reasoning behind the increase in price based on Tennis's comments was that with the management of the carts, they feel that they'd have to hire a new employee to do that, thus the increase in pricing to the city of Maplewood.
Can I ask a question about that? I have a couple of questions about that. If it's my understanding from reading through all these materials, if Tennis supplies the carts, it's one size. That's what they're looking at, is just one size. But if the city supplies the carts, we were looking at 3 different sizes. That's my first question.
Madam Mayor.
Why is that?
Actually, either scenario would be 3 different sizes.
Okay, because that wasn't clear to me in the materials. It looked like it was only, like Tennis was only doing one size cart. Okay. I looked at the numbers a lot of different ways. And I talked with Mr. Thompson today. I talked with City Manager Coleman today. Why is it that it is an advantage to us to own the carts because we're charging our residents more for us to own the cart? I mean, I get it that our name would be on it, that the city of Maplewood would be on it. I mean, I don't know why that branding is all that important. We own the carts, but I guess I have some questions about that. And either Ms. Finwall, and maybe I'll call on our 2 council members that sat on the the committee working through the RFP so that I can understand that better, because I just don't see the advantages, that we're charging our residents more. I don't understand it.
Thank
Do you want to try it first?
Yes, I will. The main reason the city of Maplewood wrote in the RFP that we would supply the carts is so, number one, we would get better contract pricing. So that did happen, with the other proposals. I'm sure they gave us their best pricing based on the fact that they didn't have to roll out the carts. But in the current scenario with tennis already having the carts in place, that was something we weren't expecting. So what this means for residents in the future, if the city of Maplewood did buy the carts, and I do have a list of benefits, including, the Ramsey County grant, which would cover half the cost of the carts. But what it would mean to residents is really for future contracts. We would be securing better pricing there, I think, is number one reasoning. And then perhaps Councilmember Juniman and Knutson might.
Okay, Councilmember Juniman, I'm going to ask you about the carts. I'm just not convinced that we need to be in the business of owning our carts.
Well, we own our trash carts.
I
and
understand
it's-
that, but that's a
and-
different issue.
Well, yes and no. That was kind of what led us to this, okay? And that, where we are now with tennis is where we could be with somebody else. And I know, sorry, Willie, but I know that this pricing is done because he wants to keep his carts out there with his name on them. I don't have to be a genius to figure that out. But should something happen to Willie or his business blows up, hopefully not, we need to go with another vendor, then we still have to do the cart reversal. And we have the county grant to help us with half that price now. Look at what the county's doing. You're gonna tell me in 5 years the county's been giving out grants? They're closing golf courses, in case nobody's noticed. They're buying sports domes, but they're closing golf courses. Ooh, zing. But I don't think these grants are gonna be around. It's just that simple, because they're starting to squeeze on everything. And we got in on the ground floor of being offered this grant. They aren't offering it to everyone. And that's part of the impetus for doing it now. They will pay for half of them, and then we will own them, and no matter who the vendor is for the next 25, 35, 45 years, the carts will be there, and nobody has to do the great exchange, blah, blah, blah. That's why. I think there's an interesting fact that might have come up on the internet today with a neighboring city that's also doing tennis. Ms. Farrell, could you inform us about that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and Councilmember Juniman. So you're referring to the new contract with North St. Paul. So the city of North St. Paul now contracts with Tennis Sanitation, and they applied for a Ramsey County grant to cover, half the cost of their carts. So they recently purchased recycling carts that Tennis will be managing.
Okay.
Very interesting. Since when our bid was given and our interviews were cast, that wasn't in the works. Again, I say, very interesting. I personally, I know that Tennis Sanitation has done a great job on our recycling program. I have no argument with that whatsoever. But I will give the same, basically, opinion I gave 7 years ago to my then colleagues. If people think we're not paying for Willie's carts, try again. We are. It's just buried in the cost. And so he not wanting to manage our carts and wanting his advertising out there gave us a higher price for us buying our own carts. That's what this boils down to. And I'm willing to play chicken with Willie, so there you go.
That helps me to understand this a little bit more.
And-
Councilmember
And I am concerned that the county grant will go away and that should down the road, as she said, forever, we would have to buy them ourselves completely. So that's part of my motivation at this point.
Councilmember Knutson, background on buying the carts.
It, to me, seems counterintuitive. I'm wondering where does the benefit of $234,000 go? If we are charged more to manage the carts, because if you look at the proposal from Tennis, it's more money, but they say ultimately it's for an employee to manage our cart system.
Then how can
So
we
it-
do that to North St. Paul? I'm kind of intrigued.
Let's not have
I- you're-
crosstalk, let's
You're
just,
talking about stuff I don't know about, so.
right, so let's just,
Just-
excuse me, can we
let's-
just focus on this and not have crosstalk? Councilmember Knutson, do you want to
Well,
finish
it-
your comments, because
You
it's,
know, there's, frankly, throughout the process, this one was a little confusing. I can see a return on investment, I can see a lower price for owning your own equipment, but I don't see it here. So I don't see the lower cost to the community, and it's a 20-year thing. I think for $234,000 or whatever it's going to cost us in this thing, we might find a better use for our money on a cash basis. I would look to, you know, our finance people to say, what are we going to, where does the money come from? Where does it save us? Do we want to amortize this over 10 or 15 years for the purpose of saving something in the future? So this needs some thought.
I would agree with you, and that was my dilemma in trying to understand this. Councilmember Smith, do you want to weigh in on this?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I share your concern, and when we spoke about this, was it 2 meetings ago? I asked the same question, and also did not feel like I was, it made a lot of sense to me either. I think the only compelling thing I've heard at all is Councilmember Juniman's point about the grant, and that, if we can essentially get them at 50% now, does that make sense for the long run? However, if we're not saving any money operationally, and we can always switch carts next time
Yeah.
at full price, I understand that. However, if we're going to stick with tennis next time around, then we get another pass until another contract. So I guess I feel like we're kind of debating a solution, screaming for a problem.
And thank you for that. Just 1 second. In trying to understand this, the carts have a shelf life of about 10 years. And it seems to me that this is a cash outlay, a large cash outlay, that are we trying to chase a grant, but we have to come up with $234,000 ourselves, and our residents are going to be charged more.
Right.
And it's not
Counterintuitive.
matching up for me that this is a true benefit. I think Councilmember Juniman was next, and then Councilmember, okay, go ahead.
Quick question. So the 50 cents that we talked about as the cart fee, that is not included in the 440, correct? So it's actually 490, just to be clear.
Okay,
Madam,
Councilmember Juniman.
Madam Mayor, I wasn't,
Oh, okay, hold on 1 second.
I didn't quite follow
Hold
that
on, just 1 second.
analogy.
Just wait 1 second. I
So I had my
want someone to
microphone
respond to Councilmember Smith
Yeah.
about the actual, that it's 490 and not 440, I'm sorry.
Oh, I see. Yes, so the 2020 rate of 440 with city-owned carts would be what tennis charges us. What the city turns around and charges the resident is to be determined, because, we would want to cover the cost of the carts, the cost of our recycling program. So that's something we would do that cost analysis on, once all the cart details are in place. To answer your question, so it's 440 that tennis would charge to us.
Correct. But then I'm seeing the estimated cart fee for replacement carts to be approximately 50 cents per household per month, correct?
So that's added on to it, so that's the
Could be
490.
added on.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Councilmember Juniman, now to you.
Thank you. I have a question about under the recycling carts. I think it's point number 6. Could you explain funded by recycling reserve fund? I don't care who answers it.
Ms. Finwell?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Juniman, were you saying, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Under the recycling carts section, you have the number of carts, the size and all, and then the second from the bottom point says funded by recycling reserve fund.
Okay, thank you. So when we first took a look at purchasing carts, our finance director indicated that it does appear that we could purchase those carts with our existing recycling reserve funds.
Thank you. So we're not doing an additional bond like we did for the trash carts, correct?
Correct, if that's the way you choose to purchase them.
Okay. Ms. Paulseth, do you want to comment on that about the reserve fund?
Mayor and council, the recycling fund does have some surplus, so that is primarily what she's referring to as the reserve fund. It's a surplus that's been built up over several years, and it would be available to use for carts if the council decided that that was the direction they wanted to go.
Councilmember Smith?
So a follow-up question for Ms. Paulseth, and thank you. Follow-up question for Ms. Paulseth, though. Don't we have other funds that are underfunded, and could we use that surplus to replace funds into our other reserve funds that are underfunded today?
Madam Mayor and council, I wish that was the case, but the recycling fund, because there's a state grant that flows into it, is very restricted.
Okay.
Okay, that's helpful. Councilmember Knutson?
Well, that being the case, is that the only use of that fund?
Mayor and council, no, absolutely not. Yeah.
What are,
That's the key.
okay, what are some other potential uses for that fund?
I think the statute is fairly specific. It's revolved around recycling, and there's a list of things, but it does have to relate to the recycling activity,
Okay.
Smith.
Councilmember Smith?
Thank you. And one more follow-up. Would it put us at risk to having to replace those funds at some point if we were to take those funds out? I mean, would we have one more underfunded fund we'd have to fund?
Mayor and council, I really would like the chance to do an analysis again, because this was probably close to a year ago when we first looked at this. So I'd like to look at what's happened in between that time and take a look at our 10-year financial plan that we have laid out and see where it's taking us. I would need a little bit more information on how many carts we would intend to purchase. And to date, I don't know that information exactly yet. So it would really be good if we had a little more time to study this.
Would we be able to approve the contract but table the cart?
I think that's a very good point, because there are actually two motions. One is to approve the contract, and the other one, and that would be my tendency right now, given what Ms. Paulseth just talked to us about, trying to understand this a little bit more, to really see what any kind of benefit would be. We don't have to, we could table that second motion and get additional information to see where do we want to go with it, because I'm hearing some of the same questions that I had in reviewing this. I just don't feel all that comfortable addressing the cart issue based on all of the questions and the unknowns that Ms. Paulseth could bring back some actual information to us and some data. So, Mr. Beatty, would that be accurate, that we could still approve the contract but not decide the cart issue tonight?
Madam Mayor, Council, that's correct.
Okay. Councilmember Juniman?
Thank you. Could we also ask if Ms. Finwall has pricing, so we could compare what this would be with Mr. Tennis's cart company? We should also have the pricing from the other company if we're going to be going into depth on this.
I think that certainly would be appropriate if the council, as a group, we decide that we're not going to address the cart issue tonight, that we would get additional information from Ms. Paulseth and additional information about other alternatives for purchasing carts. Okay?
If we may, Madam Mayor.
Ms.
So
Finwall.
the motion is to authorize city staff to negotiate cart pricing through a cooperative purchasing.
Right, I
So-
think what I'm hearing from the council and what my position is, what I'm hearing from everyone is that we're just not comfortable with the fact, with the way that this is presented and the numbers. It seems to me that we're chasing after money for a grant, but we are expending quite a bit of money for really a product or a recycling bin that is going to last for 10 years, and it's also going to cost our residents more money. So I think we're not really comfortable dealing with the cart issue tonight. That's what I'm
Understood.
hearing from my fellow council members.
So just a point of clarification. When we purchased the trash hauling carts years ago, we went through a cooperative purchasing agreement. So what you do is, it's one way of getting this purchasing price through state contracts and so forth, but you're actually getting a more valid detail on the pricing. So if we could, go through that process and get, because right now, I was working off just general quotes from 3 manufacturing companies. So if you get through this cooperative purchasing, you're just getting the pricing detail so that we could utilize that for our finance director to look at more closely. And then, of course, we'd bring all that pricing detail back to you.
We're not authorizing the purchase.
Okay, so I guess what you're talking about is simply getting the additional information, but the council, I think we need a little help here. City Manager Coleman, do you want to, we've got some issues with the carts, I think. We just don't.
I can understand how this is confusing, because it's confusing to me as well, having just gotten back and reading it, going, this, I think what staff is suggesting is that to help you make the decision, it would be better to get the true pricing that meets state statute to go through that cooperative purchase
And that's what that
company.
motion
So
is,
then
right?
we would really get some more detailed costs that then you could make a better decision. Correct? Is that?
Just,
Madam Mayor?
just wait one second, just so that I understand, we wouldn't be authorizing staff to
Purchase.
purchase anything, just simply to get us pricing,
Correct.
so that we have additional information. Council, are you okay with that?
Why we need approval for that from us?
Well, it's part of the process.
Table.
We just we need your input on carts, and this is one way we could get you more information.
And
That's
it,
all.
But is it necessary to do it by council action?
Yes.
Can't you just get that information without
I
council action?
suppose, I guess Mr. Beatty can weigh in
Mr.
on that.
Beatty?
Madam Mayor, Council, I don't see a problem with council action, but if the council feels comfortable letting staff do it, I think that's
You
fine,
can bring
too.
it back to, it doesn't matter.
I guess, Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my other question on this is, if we approve the contract, but we're still up in the air on the cart issue, have we essentially hamstrung the Kathy and Willie's game of chicken? I mean, is there more negotiating to be done here, or the contract is what it is, and no matter what we decide on carts, it is what it is?
Correct.
That is correct?
Yep.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Staff is nodding over in the corner. Mr. Beatty, do you want to weigh in on that, too?
But Madam Mayor, I would go with staff's suggestion on that.
Okay.
Mayor, just to add on to why I was not in my head, is that the contract is written such that through the life of the 5.5-year terms of the contract, the city has the option to either stay with tennis-owned carts or purchase city carts. So we can either do that now upon execution of the agreement, we could do that 5 years from now. So
Okay.
the contract isn't dependent on making a decision on the carts at this moment.
All right, that makes me feel more comfortable. Councilmember Juniman.
and then I just reread that second motion. All it does say is to negotiate recycling cart pricing through a cooperative purchasing company. In other words, it doesn't say anything about getting them. It says they need our nod.
We still
Go
need
in
to
and
bring it
ask
back.
for pricing, yes.
This will never work.
So it'll help us.
It'll never work.
Yep.
You know, I guess I'm more comfortable, we can simply ask staff to get us the pricing, rather than take any kind of action, because I really want this, I want to focus on the contract itself, because I think that there's too much, there's a lack of clarity here, and we want to make sure that we're doing the very best that we can for our residents in terms of this pricing. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to be clear, to me, there's a lack of clarity on pricing, there's a lack of clarity on how we would pay for it, and there's a lack of clarity to me on exactly why we have to do this in the first place. And I need all 3 of those questions clearly answered for me to approve buying carts from my perspective.
Pricing what? Pricing?
Pricing,
Yeah.
how do we pay for it, and why are we talking about it in the first place?
Why?
And I'd like to know the benefits to our residents, so that we're actually comparing what our residents are going to be paying
Yeah, that's the
if we
key.
do not purchase carts, or if we purchase carts.
Sort of the why.
Not
but,
estimated fees, but what are the fees?
Right, what are the
What
fees?
do they
How
get
and
for
why,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
fair enough.
I think that's, any,
Yeah.
council, any other suggestions in terms of additional information that we need? Okay.
So can I just, Just
City
to be
Manager
clear,
Coleman.
after we assemble the answers to these questions, we will bring it back to a next agenda whenever that is.
That
Clear?
would be my
Okay.
understanding and expectation based on what Mr. Thompson just said, we don't ultimately have to make a decision to purchase carts or, we can look at the information and say, we're just not interested,
Okay.
and then move on from there. But we need some more clarity on this as to what is the benefit.
So Mayor, I'd move to authorize the execution of the attached contract between the City of Maplewood and Tennis Sanitation for curbside residential recycling.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Smith, seconded by Knutson. The motion to authorize the execution of the attached contract between the City of Maplewood and Tennis Sanitation for curbside residential recycling. Any further discussion? Any further discussion by the council?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Beatty, do we need to do anything else because we had that other motion? We can just move on?
No, Madam Mayor, you can disregard B if you'd like. I think staff has direction.
Okay. Good enough. We have that resolved.
Never thought I'd talk about trash carts that much.
This is,
It can't be said that we do not discuss things and really try to dig in on this.
You should have.
Trash
you should have
talk.
On
discussed-
trash carts.
You should have discussed trash as long as I have. I don't even know why I want to look at it anymore.
Maybe St. Paul should have discussed a little more.
Yeah.
Maybe they wouldn't be having those
I
kinds of
guess.
issues, yes. So, it is, and to look, yeah. So, we are moving on to curbside residential trash and yard waste contract with Republic Services. Ms. Finwell, this is back to you again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Again, on June 17th, the City of Maplewood received 6 proposals for trash and recycling. On July 22nd, City Council authorized staff to negotiate with the top-ranked respondent. And that respondent for the trash and yard waste only alternate category was Republic Services. They had the best overall score in all 6 criteria, including the lowest price of all the respondents. So the contract term for the trash hauling contract will be the same as the recycling, 5.5-year contract beginning January 2020 to June 2025. The city will continue to own the carts and will offer the same sizes, 20, 35, 65, or 95 gallon. We'll still have that 20 gallon every other week service as well. And the yard waste carts, now those will be switched over to 95 gallon carts. Currently, residents who opt into the yard waste program are offered a 65 gallon cart, so that'll be an improvement to the new contract. The collection, same with recycling, will continue on the city's 5-day certain collection routes, and then yard waste will be collected weekly, April through November, if you opt into that program. The billing, Republic Services will continue to do the billing, and under this current contract, there will be no charge for trash and organic collection at city facilities. So that's a benefit to the city here. The reports will continue to come monthly and annually with all those program details such as number of carts, number of households, so on. We'll continue to do a work plan yearly with the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission and City Council on ways to create efficiencies in our program over the next 5.5 years. Public education will work with both haulers to create a standardized flyer for our residents, and then Republic also does education tags for materials that are not allowed within that trash. This contract also has new liquidated damages, including billing as a liquidated damage, both major and minor billing issues, as well as incident escalation procedures. And new in this contract, there'll be no charge for the spring cleanup support. Currently, the City of Maplewood contracts with various haulers for our spring cleanup work, so this will be a benefit to the city. The bulky item collection, there'll be slight increasing. Residents will see bulky items curbside collection from $10 to $35. Right now, residents are paying $5 to $30 for those items. The fall cleanup campaign, Republic Services has been working with the City of Maplewood on that campaign since we first contracted with them 7 years. And so now, under this contract, it'll be standardized to be a 20% discount on those bulky items for the first 4 weeks in October. The rates on trash hauling, it's a little more complicated. The rates do include the trash collection, which is basically the cost to collect trash at the curb, and that's what Republic Services needs to charge the residents. And then the trash disposal fee is a cost of tipping the trash at the Recycling and Energy Center. And so now, as you know, that is operated by Ramsey and Washington County. And then taxes and fees, and included there are the state solid waste tax, the county environmental fee, and then a cart fee that the city of Maplewood currently charges for 75 cents per household per resident. So the collection rates, number one piece of that rates overall, you can see in the contract here, year 1 through that 5.5 year, the collection rates would be the same cost for any size cart, beginning at that $7.40 all the way up to the $9.01 on year 5.5. But then you add in the disposal fee, which this year we did see an increase in the disposal fee due to the fact that the hauler rebates have been removed now that the counties have taken over that. So you add on these disposal fees to that collection fee, and then finally you add on the taxes and the cart fee. And here I have a comparison for you of the 2019 current contract, what our residents are paying, and then the first year of the contract. I think this is a good example of the type of increase that we'll see. This averages about a 32% increase in our trash rates for our residents for year 1. City of Maplewood did have the lowest trash rates for many years, and these are still very competitive, as we found in the RFP process, because these were the lowest rates supplied to the City of Maplewood in that proposal process. One thing that we will be looking at the term of the contract is a pay-as-you-throw methodology. The RFP did outline this price increment between service levels to be at least 50% by year 5 of the contract. And of course, the purpose there is to have lower pricing for those smaller carts to encourage the reduction of waste and increase in recycling. And through the negotiations, we were able to come up with a way of doing that. So each year we'll look at that and then adjust the disposal fee. However, I'm not sure we'll ever quite meet that 50% increment, but it's something that we want to strive for. In 2019, as an example, our current prices, the increment is about 14 to 17%. So there's not much incentive to go to a smaller size because it's only $1 difference or so. So then the 2020 price increments as currently proposed in the contract, that's about a 10 to 25%. So each year we'd like to see that percentage increase so that you have the higher rates for the larger carts and lower rates for the smaller carts. And then the timeline, so the City Council, we're looking for an authorization to execute the contract tonight, and then that new contract would begin January 1st, 2020. So tonight, the recommended action is authorize the execution of the contract between the City of Maplewood and Republic Services for curbside residential trash and yard waste collection.
Thank you. This issue seemed so much simpler than the recycling issue. I just have one question, and I followed up with this with Mr. Thompson, but I'll ask either one of you to address the organics collection. Can you comment on that? I know that we have the new facility over here at our community center. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Ramsey County and Washington County, now that they own the Recycling and Energy Center, are coming up with a plan for an infrastructure so that our haulers can do the curbside organics collection. The current plan involves utilizing heavy-duty durable compostable bags that will be placed in your trash cart, and then those would be tipped on the floor at the Recycling and Energy Center and then separated. And that infrastructure should be in place by year 2022, so during the term of this contract. So in the contract, we do outline that Republic Services will work with the city on this curbside organics collection.
And in the interim, before we get curbside organic collection, can you explain what's going to be available?
Yes, so step number one with the county was allowing these drop-off at their yard waste sites for household organics. And now they're working with all the cities in the county to try and install a satellite organics drop-off station. And the city of Maplewoods just opened on Friday. So it is located in between the Maplewood Community Center and Ramsey County Courthouse right on Wiper Avenue. It's very visible. We haven't done any advertisement for it yet, but already people are asking where they can get the organics bags and things like that, which they are right there in that enclosure. They're in a container that you can take. They suggest 2, and then we also will have them available at City Hall.
Okay. And when will they be available at City Hall?
Today they were. So,
Oh, they were?
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Councilmember Smith, you have a question.
Yes, thank you. One other thing that has come up over the last several years has just been some issues around communications, particularly bad weather times or even around holidays. And I think as a resident, I would say the biggest challenge for me is having 2 vendors, and are they both delayed, or is one delayed, or is the other delayed? Have we had any discussions about if we can get our friends at Tennis and Republic together to have some sort of like a joint communications program and figure out like if we're canceling together. If we're going together, and because I think a lot of people think of them as one thing. Like, I know every Friday morning I got to pull 2 carts out, right? And it sure would be neat if that was a more coordinated effort.
Ms. Finwald, do you want to address that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Smith. So we did look at that very closely because we did have a few incidents this year where trash was delayed but recycling was not. And Republic Services does offer the robocall, whereas Tennis Sanitation doesn't have that currently in their program. So the messaging that some of our the residents were receiving was that trash and recycling were delayed, unfortunately. So we worked closely in the negotiations to look at that and address that in several ways. Number one, we don't want it to happen in the first place. So we're going to ensure that several staff members are on that robocall list because, not everyone lives in the city of Maplewood staff. So we want to hear what our residents are hearing. But first and foremost, if there is an opportunity to get that robocall to the city staff prior to it being released, we would like that to happen. But of course, these sorts of things, these service delays in a terrible snowstorm or something, that decision usually comes at 5 in the morning. And of course, our business hours don't start until 8. So it's not always possible. However, they did offer to call me at home, but so that's, we want to make sure that we have review of those robocalls when we can, and then, of course, get notified of those right away when they go out. And then, the trash trucks, of course, are much heavier, so it's more challenging sometimes, I understand, in snowy, slippery weather. And it's not feasible currently with the 2 contracts to say if one delays it, that the other will have to delay it. So we just need to coordinate the messaging better. And again, another way to ensure that is now we have a liquidated damage that covers that mixed messaging, so that's one incentive to make sure that they're really working with us to coordinate that.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Councilmember Juniman.
Yeah, I was going to call everybody's attention to that section of the contract because of the amount of time I know they spent on this, trying to get that nailed down as closely as possible. And I think and this is pretty much, I think, why it's in here. That confusion was actually really caused by Republic Services because their robocall said trash and recycling. So we might have been spared that if they had just said your trash pickup. So the fact that they have to be more accurate or else should help clear that up. And then we just have to, in our education piece, now that we're going to be doing the new contract, it'll be in the Maplewood Living, we'll have to emphasize that to people, that, you know, if you listen to your robocall. You know, don't assume what it says. And I think Republic and Sean have worked really hard at this, trying to make people communicate as best as they can to avoid this. But even the call itself, only naming the service that it covers, will clear up a lot of issues. But that was I know there's much time spent on that.
Yeah.
It's a big issue.
Councilmember Smith, do you have another question?
I just wanted to say thank you, because in that I'm not upset or surprised we couldn't figure that, because you're talking about two large organizations with complex operations, and I get it. Like, I appreciate the effort against it, and I think it's good progress that we made, and it's, I think, trying to wish two different organizations together into unified operations is not realistic. So but I appreciate the effort and all that.
Thank you. Don't see any other lights. Council, is there a motion?
I move approval of the curbside residential trash and yard waste contract with the Public Services.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Neblett, a motion to authorize the execution of the attached contract between Maplewood and Republic Services for curbside residential trash and yard waste collection. Any further discussion?
I'm sure that Romac knows any goof-ups, and I'll probably ride my broom after all these years.
Understood, Kat.
Just the messenger. If no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Tennis and Republic, for working through this process with us. We appreciate it very much, and we appreciate the staff's time on this. So moving on to our 2040 comp plan. Mr. Martin.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, before you tonight is the adoption of the city's 2040 comprehensive plan. This update process formally started in February of 2017. The development of the plan was led by the City Council and its appointed steering committee, which was made up of the council and also community and business members, as well as representatives from each of the city's boards and commissions. The city's boards and commissions also spent time reviewing each of their chapters that was relevant to the review areas. So this was truly a full city effort with all the groups being involved. Staff from the Community Development, Public Works, and Parks and Recreation, also with help with the consultants from HKGI. I don't have a PowerPoint.
Oh, you don't have a...
No.
Thank you.
Nope. So as I was saying, staff along with HKGI worked to draft the actual document itself. And then also this project included extensive public engagement, which consisted of more than 700 residents participating in our online social pinpoint website where people could review and comment on different questions we were posing in the plan itself. We took our work out on the road, so to speak, to groups like the Rotary, the Maplewood Business Council, and churches throughout the city. We held 2 formal open houses, 4 neighborhood meetings, and spoke to many residents and property owners one-on-one. We also held 2 public hearings before the Planning Commission. Chairperson Arbuckle's here to provide his report from the Planning Commission, which recommended approval of the document before you tonight. And all this work led to the development of the plan itself, which consists of 15 chapters that comprise the traditional elements of land use, parks, transportation, infrastructure, but also the Maplewood priority areas of historical resources and sustainability that you don't see in other communities, but we've considered those important enough to put in our comp plan. The planning process also identified 4 guiding principles to be woven throughout the document, which are resilience, equity, health, and age friendliness. These 4 guiding principles work to produce a consistency of city values throughout the entire plan. I've worked on lots of comp plans. I've reviewed even more than I'd like to admit. There's a cohesion in this document that you don't find in many comprehensive plans. What leads us here tonight is the council last fall in November voted to submit the comprehensive plan to the Metropolitan Council for its official review. which is required by state statute. On August 28th, the Met Council gave its formal blessing and authorized the city to formally adopt. So that's what we're looking to do tonight with the comprehensive plan. During the Met Council's review period, they did not require any substantial changes, and discussions really between the city and Met Council focused on minor changes and clarifications to the transportation and sanitary sewer chapters. Again, want to emphasize that no future land use or housing changes were required by the Met Council. So the city's vision that we created on our own was blessed by the Met Council. Staff is able to answer any questions of the plan and the policies tonight, but we're largely here to complete the formal process, as the plan has been thoroughly vetted through the last 2 years of process. In addition, there's a second item that staff is asking the council to consider in a motion tonight, and that's for implementing the plan itself. State statute requires that the city has 9 months to update its official controls, which namely means the zoning code and zoning map. So we'd like to start work on that right away. And so what that means is think about the north end, the areas around the transit stops for Gold Line and Rush Line, and the land use policies that the comp plan has put in place. Well, we want to make sure our zoning code and designations are in place so that when physical development's ready to happen, we're ready to facilitate that so the physical environment can change in a way that's in line with our policy with the comp plan. So with that, staff is recommending the council formally adopt the 2040 comprehensive plan, and then in a second motion, authorize staff to begin work on zoning code and map amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, and thank you for all of your work and hours that you put in. I know a lot of those 2040 meetings, you were there, and I have to say, you're right, it's a very cohesive document, and I wasn't involved with the council for the last comp plan, but this one truly is a document I think that we can all be proud of, because it really shows the vision that we have for our community, and it gives the council a roadmap on where we want to go. We know our city's going to change, but this gives us a roadmap on how we're going to get where we want to be, and you were a big part of that, so thank you very much. Mr. Arbuckle, would you like to make any comments about the Planning Commission and its efforts for the comp plan?
I don't know that I have anything more for to say.
Well, I know the Planning Commission was very involved with this.
Yes, we went over the document every time there was a draft of it so that we had a chance to kind of see it bit by bit. Like you've all said, I think that everything fits together real well. Everything seems to be thought of all the way through, all the different things like the parks and the housing and everything was all in consideration so that everything kind of fits together as a puzzle. I didn't see anything real negative about it. I mean, there are some things that are going to definitely change, but with population and growth, there are always going to be changes. And I think overall, there was a lot of work done, and I know that I'm amazed at how much work and wordings are needs to put together. So,
Thank you.
did anybody have any questions? Or?
We have a couple of lights on. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I largely was going to say what you said. So I want to thank Mr. Martin, Mr. Arbuckle, and the rest of the commission. I know it's a tremendous amount of work and so much more work than anybody probably realizes. So thank you so much for what you guys do. I'm very proud of this document. I feel like it conserves who Maplewood is while also giving us a good path for the future. So it's very exciting. So thank you.
Councilmember Niblett.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I should say ditto and ditto. The other thing is, unlike you, Mr. Martin, I have not read a plan like this before. And the thing that struck me is the forward thinking and the forward sight that the people who worked on this plan had. It's exciting to think about how a city can change and what Maplewood can look like in 20 years. But the amount of work that it took to put this together is, I can't even imagine, and I wasn't even here at the start of this. But I'm excited about how Maplewood we'll look in the future. And so, thank you. Thank everybody for the citizens, the planning commission, just the citizens that took their time to have a say into what our city is going to look like. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Knutson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick comment. In looking at the plan, it looked like, in the background, there's a lot of good investments that are made in Maplewood. Parts of it talked about an infrastructure that's capable of supporting a bigger population and capable of supporting some commercial development. So I think it appears that as a base, to have such an aspirational plan is a good position.
Yeah. Councilmember Juniman.
Well, I would say this is round 3 for me on comprehensive plans. I used to have this nervous tick. But this one really.
Microphone.
This one really does tie together much better than the others. There was work involved in the others, I'm not denying that at all, but there's something about, I think it was all the people that were involved and all the new things that are already going on that's spurring the thought of what could go on in the future. I think that had a lot to do with it. And people coming to the steering committee meetings and actually participating. There was a whole lot of things different this time. So it really is, I agree, it's cohesive, complete, and it's, for anybody in the public who hasn't been part of this, you have no idea. I mean, the staff time is enough to, I would have run screaming from the building. It's unbelievable. But we did also, I have to say, I thought our consultant was excellent.
Yes.
She did a very good job of involving people and pulling things together. So we just had a really good experience, and it developed into a really good product.
It did. Okay, no more lights on, council members. We have 2 recommended actions. Do I have a motion on approving the resolution adopting our comp plan? And
I move the resolution adopting the comprehensive plan 2040.
and giving the staff authority to make non-substantive changes
Oh,
for
yeah,
clarity?
yes. Yep. Giving the staff authority to make non-substantive, easy for me to say, changes for clarity or to correct typographical errors. Yes, as the final document is prepared for printing.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Neblett, the motion to approve the resolution adopting our Maplewood 2040 comp plan and giving staff the authority to make non-substantive changes for clarity or to correct typographical errors. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I move to authorize the preparation of required zoning code and map amendments and to utilize the services of HKGI to complete the zoning work.
Second.
Any further, motion by Smith, seconded by Juniman. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We have one final agenda item, and that is our North End Vision Plan.
Speaking of the future.
And this one belongs to, is this Mr. Martin, you too? You are so lucky.
Mayor and Council, thank you. Before you again is a request to adopt the North End Vision Plan. Lots of obvious synergies with the item that you just reviewed. Late last summer, when the major initiatives of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan were fleshed out, we knew developing a vision plan for the North End would be one of the major directives of the 2040 plan. Staff also knew from past experiences that once we submitted the plan to the Metropolitan Council, because of their workload at looking at all the plans throughout the metro and how thorough they are, that there would be some time, there would be a gap between our submittal and to what we got to tonight. So we wanted to take advantage on what we could. There's some items like the zoning code work that legally we can't start until we adopt the comprehensive plan. But a North End Vision Plan was something we felt we could get a jump start on and get moving forward. So last August, we started working with Perkins and Will on a market study that led us to know more about the conditions affecting the North End. And that market study work created the base for what this vision plan document turned out to be. Last fall in October, we started working with the North End Working Group, which was appointed by the City Council and also included business and property owner representation from the North End, as well as representatives from the Planning Commission and Community Design Review Board. Over those 6 meetings with the working group, they created a vision plan document that is before you tonight. In addition to the working group, we also held 2 open houses. We met directly one-on-one with more than 150 businesses in the North End, and we had several meetings with significant property owners throughout the North End. All this work was also coordinated, I do want to make mention, with the Ramsey County's Rush Line project, so we wanted to make sure there was lots of cohesion between the North End and the Rush Line, and that they were really essentially married as those 2 processes moved forward. All this work led to a plan that lays out both a near and long-term vision for this important area of the city. The council went through those 2 visions at a workshop in August in detail, and then since that workshop, the plan has then been formalized in the document that's before you tonight, and the Planning Commission reviewed that document in August and also recommended approval. Mr. Arbuckle obviously is still here to talk about the Planning Commission's review of this plan. Much like the comp plan tonight, the work you authorize staff to do on zoning code and map amendments will also help. It will also work to implement this vision of the North End study. We will be working to codify the vision of the North End and design standards that are laid out within this document. It's our intention as well to keep this document as a working document. So we're already using it in meetings with developers and property owners that are looking at what the North End could be, what some of their options are, and this vision is clearly laying out what the city would like to see happen. So it is informing our discussions today on what could be tomorrow. So with that, staff is recommending adoption of the North End Vision Plan and can stand for any questions from the council. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you telling the council that you're using this document, because in looking at the final product, I was thoroughly impressed. I went to a number of the meetings, got to play with the Legos and the pipe cleaners, and really appreciated that. We had such input and commitment from our residents who came and gave creative ideas and their vision for what our city could look like. And I think that this document is really quite amazing. I can't say enough about it. I see Mr. Knutson, or Councilmember Knutson, you have a question.
Thank you, Mayor. Just have a couple of questions. Again, it's a very comprehensive document. I certainly spent a lot of time in the North End in the early days developing St. John's. One question is, as I look at the whole thing, it's kind of an ensemble of all these different things, the walkways, the trees, and all that stuff. What's kind of in your opinion, the big deal? I mean, what's the big thing that's going to get this thing going? Is it the mall? Is it the residential piece? Or what's your thinking?
Mayor and Council, yeah, I think big picture, adding residential components directly into the neighborhood is going to change the dynamics of that neighborhood. I think that's going to create a little more, we talk about creating an 18-hour window of activity within that district, that there is not 18 hours of activity right now. And so if you have more round-the-clock, almost people there for shopping, entertainment, living, you're going to create more vibrancy, and there's going to be more demand for other uses. From a physical standpoint, and it was the first thing that all the different groups kind of came to on their own, was creating a link between St. John's and the mall area. And so if that's extending St. John's Boulevard somehow to the mall, there happens to be another shopping center in the way, but we've talked to that property owner quite a bit, and they're intrigued by the idea. But I think even just making somehow a linkage between those 2 important cornerstones that happen to be on each side of the district would dramatically change that feel of that neighborhood.
Excellent question. Do you have another one?
Well, I just had one more. I was looking at the rental rates in the one document, and it always struck me as I've moved around the metro area on different projects and stuff that rental rates kind of were an indicator of the value of your commercial properties, and it seems like the mall is pretty low. Whereas Arbor Lakes, would be certainly a lot of features that are described in the North End plan as far as, there isn't so much residential in Arbor Lakes, but so just a comment. I guess I really don't have to respond. It's just an observation. It's something we'll want to look at over time as a measure.
Certainly is hopeful that that is going to increase as we develop this particular area. Councilmember Neblett.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Martin, I had one question about the near-term vision plan, and it was concerning the Sears site. And it says redevelopment of the former Sears site. So, correct me if I'm wrong, the Sears site is still privately owned, correct?
Mayor and council, correct. As all the anchors at the mall site,
Okay.
yeah, are not owned by the general mall company.
So is there, I guess, movement, hope, negotiations there somehow that makes this part of the near-term vision?
A couple things there, Mayor and council. The intent of development of this plan was with the idea that this would be done through private investment and private choices. We would not have indicated that property if the property owner itself didn't indicate that they would be looking to do something sooner than later.
Okay.
So we did have direct conversations with Seritage, who is the property owner of that parking lot and building.
Okay.
They're looking actively to do something with that. It also, the near term and long term, we don't mean, there's a plan and there's a map, so it looks like we think this should go here and this should go there. That's not really the intent. We're setting the parameters of what we would like to happen in the vision.
Sure.
But if A happens over here and B happens down here, we're going to be just as happy.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Juniman.
I just think it's interesting, and it will only take a moment for that, maybe for the people at home, because this ties it to the 2040 plan. At the bottom of our introduction sheet, it says what the plan, what we should be doing, and this is kind of what this North End study plan is. Expectations regarding anticipated mixes of land uses on a block-by-block basis. Expectations regarding urban design principles guiding redevelopment in the area. Opportunities for connections and synergy with the Healthy St. John's campus and surrounding supportive healthcare facilities. Improvements to support pedestrian, bicycling, and transit connectivity, particularly the Metro Rush Line stations, and further definition of implementation tools and steps to be completed to support redevelopment and revitalization. And I think that it actually summarizes a lot of what people who came were trying to say. They were just saying it in everyday terms of what they wanted to see. But it just says, you know, the comp plan and this go really well together, and this is, like he said, it's a living document. You can kind of let things swim around and change places. But it's an idea that this place up there is going to get better. It's not going to decline.
Yeah. Mr. Arbuckle, I'm going to ask if you would like to step up to the microphone again since you're in attendance tonight. We do appreciate your service on the Planning Commission. What would you like to share with us
Mayor and
about
Council?
this document?
Yes, I was on the committee, and I really did enjoy all the different things that we did and the involvement with all the different businesses that were there that came to that had different things that they had interjected and wanted to do. Going to Mr. Knutsen's question about the big thing there is I think the key is that we have to kind of have where the people come, that they want to stay all day long. They come in the morning to exercise in the parks or the walkways, and then they have lunch and maybe go visit somebody at the hospital and maybe see a movie or do something else in the afternoon, so that we kind of capture them for the whole day, that they stay there. The other thing is, the only way it's going to really work is if we can get involvement from developers in that to feel they're interested in coming to this area, because there's a real desire that people really want to be there. So that's the key, I think, that we need to really pump up, to say that this is really where you want to build. This is a great place, and you really have a good future, and the city's behind you in that. So.
Thank you very much. I see no other lights on. Is there a motion?
I move adoption of the North End Vision Plan.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Knutson. Approval of the North End Vision Plan. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We have no other business to conduct tonight. Councilmember Knutson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give a shout out to Sean Finwell for enduring this project, and two people that she had to work with. I don't want to say which two, but
Probably them.
No, I'm sure it was, but I just want to say it's incredibly complex doing this. And the RFP went out, and responses came back that were very different. So we had to go through each and every one of them, do graphs and charts to make equity out of the responses. That's very complex work, and I want to thank her for her diligence, and coming to this point is a big deal. Thank you very much.
It was not an easy project. We realize that, so thank you. With that, we are adjourned, and good night, everyone.